June the 20th, 1993. One goal from Mr. Stoichkov at Camp Nou is enough to beat Real Sociedad, and in combination with Real Madrid's loss in Tenerife, Johan Cruyff's dream team wins its third consecutive league title. Celebrations are in order at Camp Nou, as this last day of the season miracle is a repeat of the wondrous happenings of a year earlier. In spite of a surprise elimination from the Champions League to CSKA Moscow, Barca can look back on an excellent season. They also won the club's first European Super Cup with the team's three foreign players in great form. Koeman, Stoichkov and Laudrup all played key roles in what was a very tough league campaign. In addition to the classic battle with Madrid, the Blaugranas also had to fight off the challenge posed by Deportivo de La Coruña, a team that included the likes of Bebeto, Fran and Mauro Silva, who were led by Arsenio Iglesias. With possibly Europe's best trio of players filling the limited three spots reserved for non-Spanish nationals, Cruyff insists that his team need a new star for the following season. The man targeted right from the start was Brazilian Romário de Sousa Faria. After 5 seasons of goal-scoring in the less rarefied atmosphere of the Dutch League, he came to Camp Nou to extend the legend of a team that had already made history.
Johan signs Romário to change some of Barca's habits. What had happened? The same as now. The teams start to study the way you play. They start to create a tougher position, and Barca end up finding problems out there. The time comes when Cruyff believes that the team needs a change and an alternative to keep on being title contenders. Romário offers that. More than likely, after the league titles, he knows the team needs a powerful shift for the foreigners, not for the rest of the team. He doesn't get enough from Vizca because Vizca wasn't really a threat to any of them. With Romário, with the limit of 4 and 3 that can play, he pushes them all because, come on, this guy's very good. On a footballing level, Barca continues to grow. They start with a positional play, they evolve with players who can unbalance this positional play. Koeman arrives, then Laudrup comes over, they need a bit more aggressiveness, and Stoichkov arrives. It all starts to fall into shape until you need the final touch. On a team that's already made, you're not in a hurry to go out and look for whatever player. You can go and look for the guy who fits in and the one who you're missing in the team. In the end, we were using all of our resources. A team that played very well, that was always in control of the game, that created a lot of chances, and then we signed the best finisher. We had known Romário for a long time. He played in Holland, and we played against him, and we said, listen, if we had this guy, it would be amazing. Back then, really, to get to know players, you had to see them live. If you didn't travel to Holland and you saw him at home, or you went wherever PSV were playing, you didn't see him. The other reason was that this guy had been doing magic at PSV for years. On a year that, when the season ended, the World Cup started, come on. I've always thought that is very important because players who are human beings know that at the end of the season there's an extra prize. And Barca really only had Stoichkov as a goal scorer. Other players also scored goals, but he was the only goal scorer. Then they brought one in. We did everything we could to bring him here. All of those negotiations were complicated. They still are very complicated. If someone says that signing a player is easy, they don't know what they're saying. Rather than complicated, the thing with Romário was that at the time Barcelona didn't have enough money. That's what Núñez said anyway. What we did was take advantage of the fact that it was when regional and private television stations were starting up. So we kind of invented a system where Barca, without having to pay anything, accepted to play 5 friendly games. We had to look for some dates, some of them in the middle of the week. And in exchange, one of my companies paid the transfer, and then, when with the rights of these friendly games, we made the money back, and we did business. I sent a private jet to fetch him in Italy. I took him to Girona, because I thought that at an airport like Girona, no one would look for him. And I sent a vehicle to get him in Girona, and then they brought him to Sant Vicenç de Montalt, to my house. Him and his agent. I was calm. I thought there was no way that anyone would know that if he came from Italy to Girona to Sant Vicenç de Montalt, he would be here. But we were unlucky enough that one of the workers at Girona Airport recognized him, and he alerted the media. So I was negotiating with Romário and his agent, and my wife came in and said that our door was full of television, radio, newspaper reporters. So I went out, and there were about 50 or 60 journalists, more or less, and I asked them what was going on. And they said, "We know that Romário is with you." And I said, No. I'm with my sons. We're relaxed, it's Saturday. No, it's not true. And I told him the lie. Why? Because his agent there was using the pressure of the media that was at the door to try to get him a better contract, which I think is fair enough on his side. But when all the media left, they believed that he wasn't there. So I went back in, and I said to them that there wasn't any pressure. If they didn't want to sign, they didn't have to. But Romário was very excited to come to Barcelona, so he finally did come. Coming to Barcelona means drawing a lot of attention. Football is a 24-hour thing here. Got the papers, televisions, discussions. The interest is a worldwide thing. And I always said, with what he does and what people will see, he's going to be the best player in the world. That night, it was very late. He slept at home. At 8 o'clock in the morning, I told him that I was going to church, if he didn't mind, that I'd be back soon. And he said, no, I'll come with you. So we ended up going to church with my family. And that day, coincidentally enough, the priest makes a speech without knowing that Romário is there, and he starts talking about life, and he says that it wouldn't be the same if Johan Cruyff was at Sant Vicenç de Montalt rather than Barcelona. So Romário hears Cruyff's name, and he thinks that we're adoring him during Mass. So when it's over, he says, "Oh, Johan Cruyff, he's like God." And I said, no, it was just a metaphor. He never believed me. He thought that in all Masses there was a moment when the priest made a reference to Johan Cruyff.
Romário was 27 years old when he came to Camp Nou. He had spent 5 seasons at PSV Eindhoven, and although he never truly adapted to a country so different to his native Brazil, he still helped his team to win 3 league titles and 2 Dutch Cups. In addition, he topped the scoring charts in the Dutch league for 3 of his 5 campaigns in Holland. At the 1988 Olympic Games in Seoul, he won a silver medal with Brazil, and the following year, as he established a brilliant striking partnership with Bebeto, the national side went one better and won the Copa America. Signing for Barcelona put him on the major club stage for the first time, and the Brazilian responded in style to the delights of Barca fans, who relished the chance to see a very special player, one with the rare ability to create football magic out of nothing.
And when we signed him, he put on an absolute show of what football is about. He scored goals. He was like a cartoon player. He was very different to everyone. I repeat, I think that inside the area, he's the best player that I've ever seen. He's the best I've ever seen. I saw him from a very close range, very close. Terrible. You can ask any defender, and they won't even know what to answer. For me, he was and will be the best striker in the world. inside the area, there's no one better. In tight situations, he could do whatever he wanted. You couldn't ask Romário to run a lot, but you had to ask him to be in touch with the ball as many times as possible. And the closer to the area, the better. Because he was capable of imagining whatever shot, any kind of dribble, any kind of movement. He was very subtle. I don't think he did anything in a vulgar way. On the football field, of course. He wasn't very tall. He wasn't very strong. He always looked like he was a bit confused, always looking up. But he was very intelligent. Individually, he moved very well on the field, very fast, and he knew how to do one of the most complicated things, one-touch football. Aside from his ability, his runs were magnificent. He would lose his mark just walking or staying still, because as Barca passed, the other team moved this way, the other way, following the ball, and all of a sudden, this kid would stop, and all of the defenders continued following the ball, and he was left alone. And he would walk a lot. He didn't make any noise. He was very silent. He would never draw attention, and his runs were tremendously subtle. I remember that Barca midfielder said that Romário was like a traffic light, because when he wanted the midfielder to know when to make the pass, he would stand straight like a pole. When he inclined forward, he wanted the ball, and when he was looking straight at you, he didn't want the ball. He only had to discover when he was inclined forward. When the light was orange, it suddenly went to green. When it was red, the ball went from Guardiola to whoever else, and it kept moving. But no one would pass it to Romário because he was red. I don't want it. The moment he turned, he wanted the ball, and he didn't miss. On the other hand, you could spend half an hour moving the ball and Romário would be scratching his head. And also he was very fast in the last important yards. I'm almost sure that his speed in the 100-meter run, anyone could beat him. But in the 5 or 10-meter run, no one. In the first 5 meters, you don't run with your body. You run them with your head. And he could see that. Romário was selective. He never made a run for no reason, not one. And when he made the run, it was because he wanted the ball. And if he wanted the ball, it was because he wanted to score. I haven't seen that in many players. That moment when the snake is looking at you straight in the eye, and the next moment it's not looking at you, because it's not even in front of you, it has already bitten you. And that's what I remember the most about Romário. His almost non-caring attitude walking around, and all of a sudden he wasn't there. He wasn't a player who would combine, he wasn't interested in anything else, other than getting the ball near to the box, and there, let him do what he does best, what only he is able to imagine. His selection of finishes was so wide that it made him special. I don't think there's anything that he didn't know how to do. He was short, but he headed the ball well. He was very good on the touch with his head. I think it depended on if he was wearing shampoo that day, but he was able to do it. With everything that the rest of us needed high intensity for, he did it all very relaxed. In the final stage of executing, he was like, look, I'm doing this. I've always said that the difficult part is not doing something, what's hard is thinking of what you're going to do, and that's what he did. Those plays by Romário are priceless. What he did in his first game against Real Sociedad, the way he had of measuring goalkeepers, he made the big ones crawl, the small ones jump, he had a different finish for each keeper. The way he arrived, people saw him as something extraordinary. I repeat, he did very, very spectacular things. He scored goals that are hard to imagine if you don't see them. And he did it with that kind of ease, and it looked like it wasn't even hard.
At Barca, Johan Cruyff never used a conventional number 9 and had indeed consigned target men such as Gary Lineker and Julio Salinas to the wing. As well, the Dutchman anticipated the false number 9 by using the likes of Laudrup and Baquero in a withdrawn role. But with Romário, he concentrated his attacking strength in a pure striker, one who could turn a game round with a moment's inspiration.
I don't think it's a question of football. I think it's about the name. I think that Romário is an opportunity that appears, and who doesn't like Romário? Johan signs him, and from there he does change a few things. If Romário doesn't sign, the dream team wouldn't have been crowned as a team capable of changing from the positional game from when Cruyff arrives, with players like López Recarte, Solé, Lineker's problems, Julio Salinas. That was the ABCD, the beginning of the alphabet. Romário is the end of it. The capability of a pure striker being on the end of all the dream team's plays. Some of the mechanisms that had been working up until then changed. The false 9 position had a great value to create space that was invaded by the wingers that played in, like Goicoechea or Stoichkov. And when a striker was introduced with Romário, everything changes. But in the end, it's the finishing touch on Barca's footballing style. The dream team had never had a pure striker, and they end up playing with one. With Cruyff, Romário isn't that striker who played for Brazil, who played with Bebeto. No. He just floated around. He wasn't that post, that striker. He was evasive for the central defenders because instead of playing at their level, he played a bit far from them, almost grabbing Baquero's hand. Romário wasn't the typical 9, the goal scorer that has good aerial skills. I think they knew him very well, and they brought him because they saw he was very good. I've always said that for Romário to succeed, he had to have a team behind him willing to put up with a lot of things. We understood that he didn't have to work out in training the same as the rest of us because his performance later in the games was good. You think, I'm earning a quarter of what Romário earns? I never appear in the media because all the praise is for him, but someone has to work. Yes, but he was allowed to do it. He thought, you know this is leading us to doom, but until that doesn't arrive, this is wonderful. Why shouldn't we make the most of it? You saw Romário play and you thought, do whatever you like. He doesn't do anything. Let him do whatever he wants. If he's happy, you accepted it. It was difficult. It was difficult not to have any jealousies, but you accepted it because he was so good that you thought, let him do whatever he wants as long as he scores 30 goals. I think that at that time football was at a stage when teams could afford to have one player who didn't work as much as the rest of the team and then made the difference. If you designed a tougher training scheme for Romário, if you demand more from him, if you make him do things that are just not him, you'll ruin him. For Romário, a day started in the evening, he had dinner, he went out partying, he came to training. He didn't drink alcohol. One day, eating with him, we had steak, extraordinary meat, with orange juice. And you thought, this is a crime. A good steak like this has to go with a good wine. And he said, I don't drink alcohol. so he could train, and when he finished, he had a good shower, and he went to sleep. Sometimes he left training and he would go to a small tree over there in the shadow and say, "I feel dizzy, I'm tired, I feel sick." And he sat there and he fell asleep. And we all knew where he had been. He had been in Calafell at a club that had a private area upstairs and stayed in Calafell until 8 o'clock in the morning. Of course, then he got to training and he couldn't even hold his head up. He would go out until the late hours, and he did like the nightlife. He liked to be with women. He never denied being with them. There are several women that said they had relationships with him, and he was so great he never denied it. And when you asked Johan about it, he said, as long as he scores goals, it doesn't matter. He allowed people to say he was lazy, well, whatever. When his first son was born, he was playing football on the beach in Rio. I rang him and said, "Listen, your wife has just phoned and says that she's in labour. What should I do?" And he said, you decide. And I said, "Well, wait, you're the father. You're responsible. You have to assume the responsibility." And then the child was born. He called me and he said, "Hey, I don't want them to take a photo until I see the baby." And I said, "Okay, don't worry, the Guardia Civil is here." And his wife didn't forgive him for not being in Barcelona when his child was born. And she punished him with not letting him into the room. So I had to go and mediate, and I reached an agreement for him to walk all of the corridor where his wife's room was on his knees, up until her bed, where she was with the baby, and he had to ask for forgiveness. And Romário did it. And she forgave him, and they were very happy, and he was delightful. I think later they got divorced. He was so great that even the day when he got sent off for punching Simeone, he didn't even need the card. He left the pitch before the referee showed him the card because he knew Simeone had been provoking him and he just punched him. I know it's finished, but I just couldn't stand this guy anymore, he thought. It was his glory and his hell in one moment. I think it's admirable. I remember the day of the 5-0, him saying before the game, "Today you're going to enjoy yourself." And I said, "Romário, come on, it's Real Madrid." And he said, "Today you'll enjoy yourself." And dear me, did we enjoy it. His cold blood, he was never at all nervous. We always laugh at Rafael Corta for Romário's cowtail. There are days when we don't mention the cowtail, but not many. I remember after 2-0 with Ronald's free kick, I don't know if the other team played, but their shirt didn't exist. Every play was a goal. And also he said, "Charlie, today's my day." And he went out and scored 2 or 3 goals. He was a player who was very aware of his possibilities, and he was never nervous. That was the Dream Team's night. It will go down in history. I think the goals are important for me to show journalists and people who don't know about football who I am and what I'm here to do. Incredible, fantastic. I'd never seen anything like it.
After the glory of that 5-0 win, Barca hit a significant slump, winning only one of the 5 league games following El Clásico. In addition, they were knocked out of the Copa del Rey at Camp Nou by 2nd Division Betis. In mid-February, a humbling 6-3 defeat at Zaragoza marked the low point for the side. Cruyff declared that he and his players should see that reverse as a turning point in the pursuit of a league title that, in truth, seemed a very distant prospect, and so he set to work to reassess the team's tactics. The coach decided to strengthen his defence in midfield as he gave more responsibility to players such as Nadal, Amor and Ivan Iglesias. This meant that he had to sacrifice an attacking player, and so the principal goal-scoring duties would rest with Romário and Stoichkov, who in theory would have more space to work in. This new approach also saw players such as Goicoechea, Guardiola and Michael Laudrup spend more time on the bench. This seemed to signal a likely end to the Danish striker's time at the club.
I think that at that time, the coaches realised that they have to change, to move some pieces, because the team doesn't have that energy anymore, not the ability to break the balance. Then we started to play a bit more with four defenders when Nadal arrived. He started to play as centre-back with next to Koeman, with Sergi also appearing. And then what we also did was have a stronger midfield with people like Guillermo, with Chiqui arriving from behind and also scoring goals, with Risto and Romário up front also scoring. And the problem ends up being Laudrup. He's the one who pays the consequences of Romário's arrival. When the striker position is filled with Romário, everything changes. Laudrup's space is another one. They moved him away from the penalty area, and his personal relationship with the coach also changes. Is Romário's triumph Laudrup's doom? If we look at it in those terms, maybe. But there are a lot of other stories and great movies that end with a hero's rise, meaning another one's fall. Laudrup was the provider. I remember plays with them both, Laudrup and Romário, that I think I'll remember for the rest of my life. But I think that he's the one who ends up on the losing end, probably because of his relationship with the coach as well. And at that time, Laudrup was left out. Later it was linked to when he signed his contract with Real Madrid, but I think the most intelligent Barca fans never hated Laudrup. He was a victim of something that is normally wanted, Romário.
Cruyff's tactical changes had their effect, and Barca enjoyed a fantastic end to the season. They reached the Champions League final and once again clinched La Liga on the final day, as Depor could only draw at home to Valencia and Barca beat Sevilla 5-2 at Camp Nou. Romário scored his 30th league goal of the campaign that night. Incredibly, not even the stress of his father being kidnapped just before the penultimate league game away at Real Madrid could stop him. Happily, his father was released unharmed and Romário continued in scintillating form. The Blaugrana's defeat in the Champions League final in Athens was a blow, but Romário went on to help his country win the World Cup in the USA, and he was one of the stars of the tournament. However, that summer was the beginning of the end of the story between the Brazilian and Barca.
Cruyff gives orders to Romário while the Brazilian is in debt with him. He says, "You give me 30 goals and I'll make you the best player in the world." Once Romário pays that debt, Cruyff stops having leverage. When Romário plays the World Cup and wins it, he glorifies himself. He's a player that plays for Barca. He wins the World Cup. It's all madness in Brazil. I remember a conversation in Los Angeles before the final against Italy, when Toni Bruins reminds Romário that on August 1st he has to show up for training with Barca. And Romário says, "If I'm the world's number one and I win the World Cup, I'll come back whenever I want." The same way that here everyone wants to win the Champions League, Brazilians want to be world champions. It runs in their blood. He feels that he's made that goal and that he can slow down. Brazil wins the World Cup and Romário doesn't take orders from Cruyff nor anyone. It's just him. He's the king of the world. I think that from then on there's no solution. Name it Cruyff or anyone else. He's already done it. He's number one and he scored 30 goals. Like any Brazilian, he celebrated in Brazilian fashion, and his mentality was that in football, he had accomplished his goals. And from then on, he only thought of enjoying it and making the most of his money. And when he has to come back, I think it was the 1st of August, he doesn't come back. He says, no, I just don't want to come back. I'm world champion. He'd done everything. Brazilians have that mentality that when they've done their work, it's il dolce far niente. They're done. They want that kind of feeling, the one that makes us think of Ronaldinho and the sea. They want the sea, the sun, their towel to enjoy themselves. I imagine that one day he'll appear, and then we'll work on the internal rules. Our commission will work on it, and we'll see what we'll do. The coach has said everything that he had to say at the press conference, and we won't comment. We've come, it's what we had to do, and I imagine he knows why he did it. We don't want to say anything. I have nothing to say. I just want to talk to the coach and the club first. Cruyff was very cross. I had to be the mediator again. Romário had to apologise. Cruyff had to accept his apologies, and he didn't want to, and he was right not to do so. It was a total act of indiscipline. I've made a mistake, coming back 23 days later, but I've talked to Johan and Gaspar, and I've asked them to forgive me, and I'll do whatever they want. More than him arriving late and all that, it was the way he came, what he told us. It made no sense. We gave him a fine of 10 million pesetas, which will be available for the team. As for training, he has to be here tomorrow at 8 o'clock. A player who doesn't want to train is forced to train by himself, running next to the Carretera de las Aguas, just running. Romário was a player stuck to a ball. Without that, what was Romário? Nothing. He arrived when he wanted to. He went to do his own pre-season on his own timetable. Nothing motivated him anymore. He had reached his limit.
Romário finally reported for pre-season training 23 days late. He was fined and had to train alone to reach required fitness. It was understood that his return to competitive action would take some time and that he wouldn't be involved in early season games. But after the second leg of the Spanish Super Cup against Zaragoza, in which Stoichkov was sent off and new signing Hadji was injured, Cruyff decided to hurry the Brazilian back ahead of schedule. So, just 1 week after his return to Barcelona to start his own personal pre-season, Romário was back in the squad, and he received a rather cool welcome from his teammates. 3 days later, he was in the starting lineup for the first league game of the campaign at Sporting Gijón. It was a difficult decision for Cruyff. He did have a star player back in the ranks, but he knew he could lose the respect of the senior players in the dressing room.
He had to do a quick pre-season, and look at the way football is. In the Super Cup against Zaragoza, I get sent off in the second game here, and then we're left with no players that the coach can put on to go to Gijón. And of course, from the mountain to the pitch. When you see that you've put all your effort in, you've done everything, you arrive first and leave last, and then Sunday arrives and you're not in the list because someone else who's been away for 2 days is in, you think, why do I have to try? Because of the circumstances, injuries and red cards, he has the chance to come in and play. Then it's him that has to prove to his teammates that he's not missing anything. He has to pay double attention with the chances that he'll have to materialise, and to show that he has the talent, and in tight moments he can help the team. I think that today Johan would act in a different way, but he might not have played that day, and maybe we'd be telling a different story, because the team would have seen that it's not enough to just score goals and be very good, that there's justice with players, for those who strive to get better. The group survives with an equal treatment for everyone, taking differences into account, but expecting the same from everyone. He knew that he'd done something wrong in the dressing room. He said he was sorry. I forgave him. I don't know if the others did, but come on, world champion, best player in the world. I don't think that Romário was a very appreciated person in the dressing room. He was very admired, but they didn't love him. He lived in his own world. The team admired Romário, but they needed him on the pitch, nothing else. All of that wrecked the environment. Romário had lived very well because he scored a lot of goals. Then he had a bad start to the season and no one was able to redirect the new world champion Romário. No one. Nor his teammates, not the coach. And that's when it all started to fall.
It was a disappointing start to the season for Romário and indeed for the team as a whole. The Brazilian was sluggish in front of goal and summer signing Hagi was taking time to adapt to his new surroundings. The Romanian midfielder was also troubled by injuries and the fans could not easily forget the departed Michael Laudrup. Despite occasional flashes of his previous brilliance, such as in the 4-0 Champions League win over Manchester United, it was hard to recognise the Brazilian striker that had captivated the football world a few short months earlier.
Oh, he came here, but then everything, I mean, people say Romário, but everything started to slow down a bit. In the end, a bit from one, a bit from the other, makes it all quite big. Then Barca's level started to fall. I remember once in training, Johan was on to him, saying that he couldn't go out, that he had to do the same as his teammates, and Romário's reply was, "Leave me alone, you're not my father. I've won a World Cup, and you haven't." Imagine, with a character like Johan's, to have a player say that to him. The coach was complicated. You know how Johan was. He was complicated, and this was someone answering back. And that was Romário. Romário didn't stay quiet. I've seen confrontation with Johan, and I don't think that Johan was really up for that. You could see that things weren't the same anymore. You couldn't say, "I'm tired, I feel sick," go out at night and then score 2 goals. If you look at the statistics of those games, I think it's 10 or 12 goals less. You can see that he wasn't the Romário we'd had. He wasn't the one you'd seen. He didn't have that touch. When he came, the last period was difficult because he broke everything involving respect inside the group towards the club. And I think that in those days after the World Cup, he felt like he was in another world. I think he was saturated with glory and no one was capable of bringing him back to reality.
With a third of the campaign gone, Romário was a shadow of the player who had delighted Barca fans the previous season. He had scored only 7 goals, 4 in La Liga and 3 in the Champions League. The team as a whole was not performing as hoped. They were 4th in La Liga, behind Real Madrid, Deportivo and Zaragoza, and they qualified from their Champions League group only because of a last-minute goal from Baquero against Gothenburg. The traditional break for Christmas only hastened the end of Romário's time at Barca. As soon as he returned from Brazil, he announced his intention to leave the club, citing personal reasons requiring him to return to his homeland. His last appearance in a Blaugrana shirt came on the 7th of January at the Santiago Bernabeu. He started on the bench and could not help the cause when he finally took to the pitch. It was a painful night as Real Madrid won by 5-0.
It was all rotten. His attitude was horrendous in that initial half of the season. Coach had had enough. That little slide in the level of performance, the existence of differences made us understand that he wasn't feeling as well as he had and that he wanted to go somewhere else. Yes, I couldn't say it out clearly, but being with him every day, with the family, with the kids, I did understand that one day he was going to go back to Brazil. And then people from clubs from over there approach him, people from Flamengo, and they make him an offer to go back to Brazil. And he started to say, I want to leave, and I said, but you've already come back. And it started to get into his head that he wanted to go. We've made the most of Romário the year he's been here. I think he realized when he came back from Rio that he couldn't give us any more, that he didn't have it in him, so he asked us to leave. And I think that then Barca make a mistake, which is not negotiating the departure. Cruyff was very straightforward. If you want to leave, leave. If they had said no, leave in June or next year, he would have totally stayed. But that was the beginning of it all, and it was when everything started to go the wrong way for Barca. It was when the collapse of the Dream Team started. I speak from a passionate point of view because I remember I asked for a day off at the newspaper just to go and say goodbye to Romário. It hasn't happened with any other footballer. That was the fan inside me giving him gratitude. I'm leaving Barcelona today because I think now is the time to come back to my country, to be next to my family, my friends, to come back home. Football creates a series of emotions, and I think that Romário is unbeatable in the emotions that he produced. But I almost understood that that was the end. I think he thought it was what I needed, and with those 30 goals, it all ended. I leave knowing that finding a club like Barcelona is almost impossible. And there's a point of climax, which is what makes Romário so special for me. If you allow me to say it, it's like getting laid. That's it. And now what? I don't know, but was it worth it? And at that moment, secula seculorum. Yes, secula seculorum.